If you struggle with chord progressions, this video is for you. So this is for music producers who are just getting stuck on moving the emotion of their track. So let's start writing at a slower BPM firstly. If you're just getting started with chords, try writing at a slower BPM and use stringed instruments, whether that's a piano, a guitar, or orchestral strings. So I'm just using this patch here. Now this patch, keep in mind, it has texture on it. And it also has a pitch variation to it. So it's all these little things that keep the ear engaged. Okay, so we could hit shuffle just to kind of click random. That's more of an arpeggio. Okay, now the sound dictates what we associate. Okay, so this is more of it feels downward, that melancholy sound. So your sound does matter. That's why I say start with string instruments, and then you could always swap them out because usually stringed instruments have a lot of harmonic content. Let's find some. This sounds cool. I just don't want it rhythmic. Let's turn off the pattern. Okay, so let's start with this sound that's less uniform. So firstly, we are going to determine, are we going to go with a major or a minor? This is really just based on how you feel. There's no one way to start. Minor is more introspective. Major is more outwardly. So let's start with a minor chord. Let's hit control down. And again, we have to ask, what vibe are we going for? Are we going for a haunted vibe? If so, then we could just take this middle note and pull it down one. It's going to create a nice haunted sound. And we could take the last note, pull it up so that the middle note is up. Simply, you can count 5 semitones up from the bottom. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's called a fourth. And then we can raise that fifth as well. Because technically this makes 0, 1, 2, 3, which is a minor third again. And then if that were on top, that would make 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That would make a minor chord. We're just inverting the fifth, technically. That's why it still sounds like dark. Let's start adding a melody on top. So I like to write my melody in a higher octave so that I can differentiate. And don't be afraid to use half steps when it comes to this darker vibe. Okay, and then we're going to use that major second here, which is really G to D is a perfect fifth for those who understand that. I teach all this stuff in my Music Theory Magic course. So if I'm ever talking above your head, I have a whole course that maps this out. It's called Music Theory Magic. Go to busyworksbeats.com/Music Theory Magic, because from C to G is a major fifth. And then from G to D is not major, perfect fifth. And then from G to D is a perfect fifth. So really we're just playing fifths at the end here. That's why it resolves, because the fifth comes back to the tonic, G to D, back to G. Okay, so now we have that structure. Let's make this bigger. Let's copy this whole thing over. Now, let's say you want your sound to evolve. Without adding more instruments, we could take the bottom note, which is called the tonic or the root note, and pull it down an octave. Now, if it gets too boring every single time, you can change the bass notes, which will ultimately change the chord type. The sound doesn't really have the greatest stretch all the way to the lows. So let's swap out the sound. Let's hear it from the beginning. Okay, so that is the sound. If you want to hear the bass a little clearer, you could pull it up an octave or two. So as long as so we're going out of the key here with this flat, or excuse me, this half step here. So when we're using half steps, most people ask me, when do you go out of key? Usually it's towards the end of something, but it's not really when do you go out of key. It's do you resolve going out of key. So usually if you go a half step up, meaning one note up, you usually want to come one note back down. So because I resolved this part right here is why it sounds good, even though we're going out of key. So yes, you can have out of key bass that works. That's probably the proper octave for that type of sound because it's a bell sound. Now let's make a happy chord progression. So let's start titling these. Let's call this like sad, and let's create a happy. So happy is going to tap into the major scales and the major pentatonic and major stuff for the most part. Also sound, the way our ear associates sound is a factor too. So let's create a strum, nylon strum. And let us play. So let's start with, where are we at here? Let's start with A minor. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That always makes the major chord no matter what. And let's pitch this down a little bit. I like F major, but I also might go back to A major. Now, another way we can play this chord is we're revoicing what's called the fifth. So we're still getting a major vibe, but it's not as bright. So we're taking that fifth, pulling it down. But before I start revoicing the chord, let's just get the basic chords. We're going to use triads for now, and then we'll get a little more complex once we add the bass. So let's do F, and then what our ear is listening for is this top note. But because we invert the top note, we're listening to this middle note here. So my ear wants to hear this. Da-na-da-na, da-na. Okay, so now I'm going to copy this chord. Just make sure that middle note is the same, and then we are going to change the chord type. That just sounds like too tense, so let's pull that down. Or we could try diminished if we're moving too, because now we have these half step movements. And that just sounds good to me. And let's go to make this the middle note. So even though we're using a diminished, it sounds good in context. Now here is too big of a jump, so we're going to pull that note down. Change out the pattern here. Okay, so changing the pattern is changing the rhythm or how fast we play the notes. Okay, so that sounds really happy, almost commercially happy or kid music happy. That's how happy this sounds. We could revoice again to kind of tone down the happiness by pulling down the fifth. And the reason we're doing that is because this is a half step movement. Originally was up top. We're just going to pull it down. So now it still feels open, but it's not as like kid sounding. Clone this, and then let's add another nylon guitar and add a top line melody. Now we're going to make a pretty basic top line here. Let's go up an octave. And what did we play here? FAC, which is the chord. We're just playing chords spread out. This is why I teach in busyworksbeats.com/music theory magic. In my Music Theory Magic course, I teach chords because melody is chords. We're literally playing the same exact chord, just played spread apart. And now it sounds like a melody. for this diminished chord, I'm using a tritone instead of a fifth. So that's why it sounds melancholic, but it needs to resolve. Now again, if you measure this, F to A is a major third, and then F to C is going to be our perfect fourth. So that's why this works. Let's label this our happy. So once you learn all this stuff, again, I have a whole course, a new course, in fact. If you go to busyworksbeats.com/music theory magic, I'll give you a free chord code chart, a free scale code chart, and a free mode code chart to help you out when you're making your melodies and your chord progressions. So let's go back and kind of revisit where we started and, happy versus sad. Okay, so you can see the vibe change is all based on those simple chords, and these aren't complex chords. These are simple triads. Let's move into the mysterious lane, which is more R&B type stuff. And here we're going to get a little advanced. Okay, so let's pull up the JD, I want to say 800. I like this sound. It's very R&B. Now for me, I have to play it at a soft velocity for it to sound like R&B. Let's call this one mysterious, and let's color it purple. So for mystery, you got to think about tension, resolve, or unresolved tension so that it's going to balance itself out. But mysterious is also about not expecting something, but you're not going to receive it. Okay, so let's draw it out. We're going to first start with bigger chords because we have a lot more to work with. And let's start with minor. Now, when it comes to bigger chords, I listen to tone more than I listen to like what is the proper triad, because with these big chords, you can go out of key and still sound good. And now my ear wants to dun, dun, okay, because G to D is a perfect fifth. So that's why my ear wants that sound. So G to D is a perfect fifth. Now we're going to trick the ear. Instead of going back to G as the top note, let's go to the relative minor, assuming that would be the G major scale. So what I would do is I would count down from the major scale. Let's map out, before we start going into a diatribe, let's map out the minor key. Okay, so minor from F minor. And then we have to ask, what key will we be in if we started from G? Okay, so this gets a little esoteric, but here we have a half step, which lets me know it's a mode. So I'm not going to bore you guys to tears, but you have to look up your mode codes and figure out which mode associates with that first half step, and then a whole step, half step. So it's not going to be a, it's not going to be a natural minor or a major scale. All I'm saying is, so G to D is what we're listening to. That's called the perfect fifth of G. So now usually the ear wants to come back down to G, but instead of G, let's count down 3 semitones to go to the relative of that key, assuming it was a major vibe, 1, 2, 3. So now we're going to create E, and we're going to make that a minor chord, but we're going to make sure E is up top. So we got to reverse engineer thinking backwards. Okay, so if E is up top, then we need to figure out what would it be underneath, and that's where you could use the scale reference. So let's open up this scale. Okay, I'm missing some notes here. Let's copy this up to F. So E isn't even in this key. So in that case, I'm just going to use E minor ninth, and then we'll revoice this chord. Let's pull it down an octave. Okay, so our ear's like, wait, we were expecting G, but we got E. Okay, so I'm going to just make sure E is the top note. We're just going to use a minor chord. So it's not going to be technically E minor. And then we can do different stuff. So that tricks the ear. So I know I'm going through a lot of this stuff, but also when we go to C here, I'm going to use what's called a dominant ninth. Okay, because we could do a little bit more with the dominant ninth. Then I forgot what it was. D, yeah, G to D. Okay, so let's revoice this. Let's move the fifth and ninth to match the first chord. And then I can go back to D sharp and then change this chord type. So we could do 11th. We could do minor 11th, minor ninth, and minor 11th. Both sound great. And that's how we get that sound. Now I'm also changing this chord type from over here to here. This is a major, but here we have the minor at the bottom. This is not major, I'm saying, but this is a major third I was pointing to right here. And this is augmented chord right here, but technically we're playing G dominant altered. And that's how you get those really big chords. It's the dominant chords. I messed up on one of the notes, but I resolved it, so it sounds cool. That was an accidental note, but it sounded cool when the chord switched. So let's play some of these chords back. All right, if you want to learn all that, just go to busyworksbeats.com/music-theory-magic, because I go through how to make music that moves the listener through emotion using chord progressions, melody, and everything else. Go to busyworksbeats.com/music-theory-magic. Peace out, guys.